Hello and welcome to Stocks Down Under. My name is Stuart Roberts and I'm one of the co-founders of our service. And joining me this morning on Monday, the 22nd of May, 2023 from Perth is Mr. Rob Longley, who's the Managing Director of Asra Minerals, ASX ASR. Rob, very early in the morning, Monday morning, so I'm your first meeting of the day. Good morning.
Morning, Stuart. Good to speak to you and speak to your readers.
Right. You recently stepped out from day-to-day management of Arden, where you were working on a lithium project in the Canadian province of Ontario, hoping to take a bit of a break. And then before you know it, people are encouraging you to get to work at Asra Minerals with some very interesting gold and rare earths plays. How long did you manage to take off before you were dragged back into the world of employment?
Yeah, probably a week I got in there, Stuart. That's pretty accurate background, which is enough, right? I'm pretty excited by what Asra have in the rare earth space as well as their gold portfolio. So it was a pretty easy decision when Paul Summers, our executive chairman, approached me and asked me to have a look at Asra. I thought this looks really interesting. You're right. Previously, I was MD of Arden, which had both gold and lithium assets in Canada, which obviously involved a lot of time on the road. And with the divestment of the lithium into GT1, Green Technology Metals, it was pretty difficult to manage both jobs with both GT1 and ADV. So I decided to stay as NED with GT1 and still am. So I'm on the board of Green Technology Metals. But in terms of a full-time role, Paul Summers quickly grabbed me here in Perth. He's known me and what I've been doing for some time, and wanted geology and chemistry eyes on the Yttrium rare earth project. So I had a quick look, and before I knew it, I was at Mt Stirling with Ken Collerson, our professor, and Matt and the whole board, and thought this is a good deposit that needs a clear look at it scientifically, and that's where we're at. So it's been exciting so far, and we're looking forward to what's ahead.
Right. Let's turn to the company that's absorbing most of your attention right now. We go up to Leonora, at the top end of those wonderful greenstone belts that have been so productive over time in the eastern goldfields. Mt Stirling. You don't have a resource at Mt Stirling that you can publish yet. What you're turning up is some great data, both at the rock chip and then at the early drill stuff. It's got everything you want. We're talking clay hosted. Now there's a bit of debate about who's got the best clay hosted, but clay hosted, close to surface. No thorium or uranium in the mix, and importantly, and this is something I've come to appreciate more of the heavy rare earths as opposed to the light rare earths. It's fair to say you and your colleagues and particularly Ken Collerson, who is an authority on rare earths, are pretty excited by what you've got at this early stage.
Yeah, Ken's constantly dripping with enthusiasm, which is great. You need people like that in your team. Each time he comes up to Mt Stirling or travels on the road with us, we just did a couple of weeks on the east coast. He's genuinely excited, both scientifically and in terms of the uniqueness. I mean, you touched on the important points there. And I think really what separates Yttrium, which is part of the deposit at Mt Stirling, is that really high ratio of heavy rare earths. It's unusual to see that. We've got areas where we've got 80% heavies, and that's what really delivers the value in the ground at this stage. We're now moving towards metallurgy and ore body knowledge, but we've got a massive database, really detailed, that Ken and I and our consultants have been able to have a close look at and work out which parts of this deposit are ionic, which parts are going to deliver serious value and grow the resource from there. There's a lot of area at Mt Stirling which hasn't even been looked at yet. So they've concentrated. When I came into Asra, I think last November, I'd inherited basically a lot of drill samples which were still in the field, hadn't been put in for assay. So we rounded all those up, got them through the labs, and we've got about another 70 holes still to report. But they're all confirming what we're starting to see here. It's a heavy dominated, low uranium thorium deposit that comes as close to 3 meters below surface. So the rare earth deposit itself is a standout.
3 meters. If this is any good, the cost of production could be, and maybe I'm jumping ahead, could be very tiny.
Yeah, it's a soft. There's a small. We're next to Red 5, the big King of the Hills
Right.
Tarmoola gold project, and we've got good exposures of regolith, around the region within arm's length of our ground. And the regolith is very soft and very amenable to just basically free digging. So the ore body itself extends down to about 30 meters, 35 in a few places where it goes deep. That's the rare earths. We haven't even talked about scandium yet, but everything in the background is scandium rich. But that's another entity to talk about. But
that's
the
a
rare
metal
earth
you know a bit about. because in a previous life you were with Helios Gold, working on the Sunrise scandium. Well, scandium's just one of the metals you had in that one, but you've had to spend a bit of time on that metal at some stage in your career.
Yes, I have. And Ken and Paul Summers, our executive chairman, do a lot of research in that area, as well as do our consultants in terms of who's interested in scandium, which starts with Rio Tinto, right? They've just bought a scandium deposit in New South Wales. So scandium's going to be an added bonus. And everything we dig out of Yttria for the rare earths down to 30, 35 metres, all of the waste, so-called waste, is going to be mineralised waste. It's going to be scandium rich between 30 and 120 ppm scandium, which is unheard of. Whether there's a market for that is yet to be determined. But if you're going to dig it up, you'd stockpile it and keep it separate. I mean, it wasn't that long ago. I know your background goes right back to Greenland Minerals, but rare earths have only recently come into high demand, and scandium is kind of like we're early in scandium. It's there with our deposit, so why not pay attention to it and treat it carefully as you're excavating. So scandium can be removed using the resin pulp. There are ways to remove scandium, but really our total focus at the moment is on the heavy rare earth deposit at Yttria at Mt Stirling, which, as you said, has almost no uranium or thorium. So a lot of ticks for those in the know looking for good rare earth projects in WA.
So let's workshop this this heavy versus light issue a little bit, and we'll give some background here. So Professor Ken Collerson, Professor Emeritus at the University of Queensland, formerly Professor of Geology at the University of California, Santa Cruz, an authority on rare earths. His basic thesis is the more Yttria you can find, the more indication that you get a predominance of heavy rare earths in whatever deposit lies below. Have I summarised Ken's thinking in a way that packages it up well?
I don't want to speak for Ken. I'm sure he could elaborate a lot further on that. I think what Ken has travelled the world and knows most uranium and rare earth deposits globally, and each has its own merits, right? There's neither, it's not good to dissuade people from looking at all projects. And George Bork talks about this very sensibly when and he's got great experience with rare earths. There's room for all good rare earth projects. There's clay and then there's hard rock. Hard rock will generally carry uranium, thorium, and be more dominated in the light rare earths, neodymium, praseodymium. So they're lower value, but they're still in demand. So they may be $130, $150 a kilo, whereas your terbium, dysprosium are between $500 and $1,500 a kilo. So you need far less of it to deliver the same value. So the more heavy rare earths you have, the higher value per kilogram you're probably going to get. I think what's unique about Yttria and what Ken has realised is that it's a part of the rare earth basket that no one else has that they probably want. Everyone has NdPr, which is in demand and is used for low temperature end of the game, but the heavy rare earths are lacking in supply. So as we define Yttria and expand on it, I think people will start to see the DyTb and the heavy rare earth component of Yttria as being something exceptional.
Right. Now, you've got a fair bit of work to do in the next little while. You talked about the working on the metallurgy and ore body knowledge generally. Let's say it's Christmas. We're talking in May right now. Imagine it's Christmas. What do you hope to have achieved by then with your work on Mt Stirling?
Yeah, well, having de-risked through metallurgy, understanding what the maiden resource looks like and what our upside potential at both Mt Stirling and on our other tenure may deliver. So this is just the beginning, really. Yttria was only discovered just over 12 months ago. So unlike many rare earth projects, there's a lot of knowledge to put into the system. Metallurgy is critical. So I was just in Brisbane recently visiting some labs there, and I'll be visiting some here in Perth, to really make sure we understand which part of the ore body to go after, which is OBK, ore body knowledge. And that's my background and our technical team's background, is to not rush to decisions too early and potentially fall in a hole yourself too quickly, but to really understand which parts of this project are going to deliver value and which ones are relatively easy to recover. And as you mentioned before, working on the Sunrise System project in New South Wales teaches you that. That was a more complicated or a multi-element project, which was both nickel, cobalt, and scandium, as well as platinum and palladium at depth. This probably has elements of that as well, being probably an ultramafic intrusion at depth, but we're really going to focus on near surface of what we drilled intensely. So between now and the back end of the year, we want to really advance the metallurgy at both initial stage and then more advanced testing. Collect some more diamond drilling from Yttrium. There's no diamond drilling yet through Yttrium, so we need to understand exactly the profile of the densities, the material types, where the heavies sit in terms of the profile. We've got plenty of examples at Tarmoola Station, which we own, at Mt Stirling, where there's pits around us that we can understand, but it's really on top of the deposit in the ionic areas that we want to take some more diamond samples and work towards. We've got 4 guys in the field at the moment doing geochem and soil sampling across the property at Mt Stirling to say where's the next Yttrium, because we've really just drilled in one part of our tenement holding, which goes for about 20 k's,
right?
And we drilled 3 kilometres of it. So we think we understand where it's going to go, but I think, as we talked about before, you never assume. Geology is a funny thing. Gold is particularly never behaves properly. It's always where the driller thinks it is rather than where the geologist perhaps. Rare earths are probably a little bit more predictable. We're looking for deep parts of the regolith that will continue from here. So step out drilling as well along strike, and then at our Kukani project to the south, which is still in the Leonora region. Starting at soils and PXRF again to work out, is there another Yttrium, just south of where we are, and just see how big this area could be.
Right. Let's stay with Kukani. So we're about 50 kilometres south of the project area we've been talking about, and you've had a bit of success so far in proving up a very small gold deposit. Talk to us about the origins of that project and where you hope to take it on the gold side.
Well, the gold side, the ore resource that we have at ASRA is back at Mt Stirling. So it's the Visceron and the Stirling World project have about 150,000 ounces of gold, about 1.7 grams per tonne. So, a moderate size gold resource, well defined. Kukani South, which we've got an option over with a really good vendor that's been very agreeable to terms, is right on a greenstone granite contact, and it has about 25, 30k strike length. And the ground's never been worked before. So we think that area is prospective for both gold, being the Kukani area.
So given how busy the neighbourhood is, that this one's been
it is. I mean, this vendor's held that ground for some time and has believed in it. He's just wanted the right partner to come in and work it. And we're working with him on other areas at the moment that we're looking at as well. So he has large land holdings in the Kukani area. And there's potential in there to expand our gold portfolio into a really exciting area where others are either in legal battles with each other or looking to the USA or Canada at lithium. Everyone's sort of looking that way and forgetting what's so great in your own back garden. I think, coming back from Canada myself, from working over there physically, it's amazing to see what is going on in the eastern goldfields of WA and around Kalgoorlie. The diversity of projects, the activity in the area, and just the number of pits and projects you see from the air flying around. So there's still discoveries to be made right in our own back garden. We've got new tools to be able to go out and to de-risk the areas, to focus in on where we're going to be drilling. So the investors get more bang for buck out of their dollar invested, in terms of exploration. So we're starting at Kukani West, and we're looking at other parts of Kukani in terms of what's possible to expand our gold portfolio. So while concentrating in most of our activity at the moment on the Yttrium rare earth deposit at Mt Stirling, we're not ignoring the fact that gold will come into its own, we think, in the not too distant future. And even at just under 2,000 an ounce US, it's still highly exciting and a good space to be in.
It struck me the gold running hard, but a lot of gold equities have been ignored in the rush to get into lithium. So this is your big opportunity.
Well, they're cheap acquisitions, right? So you're not, right. ASRA doesn't have massive cash reserves to go out and buy a resource, not yet anyway. So we pick up what we think is suitable to our portfolio, that's affordable, that's in the region where you can work. You don't want to be travelling to the Pilbara or to Queensland or places like that on a sort of greenfields and brownfields projects too often at our market cap. So we're taking sensibly what we think we can add to the portfolio to make it a better investment decision. And at some stage down the track, having done systematic exploration and working out what we've got there, it's in my past as well that we divested a non-core asset out of a company I used to work for and made a lot of money for shareholders along the way. So that's ultimately what ASRA has to do, is make it an investment decision for people to come into ASRA and see a path to making money on the way out or on the way through on the journey. But ultimately, we all want to be standing there holding the gold bar or a pallet full of mixed carbonate rare earths. And that has to be the geologist and the team's drive, right? That's what we're moving towards.
Right.
What happens along the way is sometimes out of your control, but you've got to leave a legacy of good data, a good reporting, and good progress behind you, so that whoever takes over the reign or the project in the future doesn't have to go back and redo that work, and that they can build on good geology, good chemistry, good scientific and good reporting all the way through. So that's what our team is really focused on doing.
Rob Longley, thanks for joining Stocks Down Under.
My pleasure. Good to speak to you, Stuart. Thanks.